Please follow the channel to update the latest information. We are more than 500 Russian troops were killed or wounded in a recent 24-hour period during the battle for the eastern Ukrainian city of Bakhmut, a Ukrainian military spokesman said on Saturday. Pro-Moscow forces have been fighting for months to take Bakhmut in the eastern Donbas region. Both sides admit to significant losses, and the exact numbers are difficult to verify. Serhiy Cherevity, a military spokesperson for forces in the east, said the Russians had launched 16 attacks over a 24-hour period, with 23 clashes taking place in Bakhmut over the course of the fighting. 221 enemies were killed and 314 sustained injuries of various degrees, he told the National Parliament's television channel. It was not clear from Mr. Cherevity's comments whether he was referring to casualties sustained on Friday or over the most recent 24-hour period. An aide to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Friday that Kiev had decided to fight on embankment because the battle is grinding down Russia's best units. Moscow says capturing Bakhmut would punch a hole in Ukrainian defenses and be a step towards seizing all of the Donbas industrial region, a major target since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine began in February last year. Tens of thousands have been killed, millions displaced, and many Ukrainian cities and towns pulverized. President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Monday that Ukraine's future depended on the outcome of battles in key points in the east of the country. It is very tough in the east, very painful. We have to destroy the enemy's military power, and we shall destroy it, Zelensky said in his nightly video address. Bilohorivka and Marinkovdiivka and Bakhmut later, and Kamyanka and other places where the kind of future we are to have is being decided, where the future of all Ukrainians is being fought for. Ukraine faced relentless Russian attacks on Bakhmut in its eastern Donetsk region, with both sides reporting mounting enemy casualties as they battled across a small river that bisects the ruined town that now marks the front line. Ukraine's president, Volodymyr Zelensky, said late on Sunday his forces had killed more than 1,100 Russian soldiers in the past few days as they battled for control of Bakhmut in less than a week. Starting from the 6th, we managed to kill more than 1,100 enemy soldiers in the Bakhmut sector alone. Russia's irreversible loss right there near Bakhmut, Zelensky said in his nightly video address. Russian forces also sustained 1,500 sanitary losses, soldiers wounded badly enough to keep them out of action. Zelensky said Russia's defense ministry said earlier in the day that its forces had killed more than 220 Ukrainian service members over the past 24 hours in the Donetsk direction. Reuters could not independently verify battlefield reports, and neither side gave details of their own casualties. Ukraine forces control west of the nearly deserted mining town of Bakhmut, while Russia's Wagner mercenary group controls most of the eastern part with the Bakhmut River that flows through the town marking the front line, British intelligence said. Wagner founder Yevgeny Prigozhin said the situation in Bakhmut was tough, very tough. The closer we are to the center of the city, the harder the fighting. The Ukrainians throw in endless reserves, but we are advancing and we will be advancing, Prigozhin said in an audio statement released by his press service. He also said members of the Russian army helped his troops with ammunition. Yesterday we got 15 truckloads. Today we got 12, and I think we will continue to receive them, he said, adding there was no conflict between his fighters and Russian troops. Prigozhin had previously complained that Russia's top brass was deliberately starving his men of ammunition, an allegation the defense ministry rejected. Prigozhin said Wagner will begin to reboot and start hiring once Bakhmut is captured. His army has already opened recruitment centers across 42 cities to replenish its ranks. While Bakhmut's strategic value is debatable, Russia sees capturing it as a step towards a major aim of the war. Now in its second year of seizing all of Ukraine's Donbas industrial region, Donetsk and Luhansk regions make up the Donbas. Ukraine has decided to stay and fight on embankment after initial signs it was planning to withdraw to grind down Russia's best units ahead of a spring counterattack. Defensive analysts expect a Ukrainian counteroffensive to begin in earnest over April-May, when the weather improves and more military aid arrives, including heavy Leopard and Challenger tanks. Western tanks will significantly change war tactics. Leonid Koda, a seasoned Ukrainian tank brigade commander who received the Hero of Ukraine award less than a month after Russia's full-scale invasion, told Reuters everyone is waiting. First Tank Brigade is waiting, too. Not long ago, we sent personnel to learn to operate Leopard 2A6, said Koda, who commands the 1st Tank Brigade, which is fighting in the south of Donetsk. Elsewhere, Russian shelling killed 3 civilians who were on their way to buy groceries in the southern city of Kherson on Saturday, Zelensky said, denouncing what he called brutal terrorist attacks by pro-Moscow units. Russia has denied targeting civilians. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba urged Germany in an interview published on Sunday to speed up supplies of ammunition and to start training Ukrainian pilots on Western fighter jets. Kuleba made clear he did not expect Western allies to give Ukraine the fighter jets it has been asking for any time soon, but said pilots should be ready for when the decision was taken. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky made an appeal to the heads of the IMF and World Bank on Wednesday and renewed his call to confiscate Russian central bank assets held around the world and use them to help rebuild Ukraine, to charge the aggressor with compensation for damages. Russia must feel the full price of its aggression, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said by video link at a virtual roundtable hosted by the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund on Wednesday local time. Zelensky stood and called for a moment of silence for a Ukrainian soldier who appears to have been beheaded. A gruesome video that purports to show the beheading spread quickly online and drew outrage in Ukraine, in the latest accusation of atrocities said to have been committed by Russian troops. Also, the World Bank announced today $200 million in grant financing for a project that will repair Ukraine's energy infrastructure. The funds for this project are provided by the Ukraine Relief Recovery, Reconstruction and Reform Trust Fund, with additional funding of up to $300 million envisaged to come from partners through grants and other contributions as the project expands its scope. The restoration project of winterization and energy resources will support emergency repairs to the electricity transmission and heating infrastructure by urgently procuring critical equipment. Emergency electricity equipment includes auto transformers, transmission, transformers, switchgear and circuit breakers, relay protection devices, and other equipment. Emergency equipment for the heating infrastructure includes mobile heat-only boilers, mobile mini cogeneration units, as well as other equipment and parts to repair district heating networks. Now, in its second year, Russia's invasion of Ukraine continues to have devastating economic and humanitarian consequences, said World Bank Managing Director of Operations and Abjud. Energy infrastructure has suffered $11 billion in damages over the last year and is one of the most critical areas where Ukraine needs urgent support. We are grateful for the strong partnership with Ukraine and development partners to support this critical sector and act fast. To date, the World Bank has mobilized more than $23 billion in emergency financing for Ukraine, including commitments and pledges from donors. The Russia-Ukraine war that started on February 24 has taken numerous lives, and the war continues to escalate between the two nations even now. The biggest land conflict in Europe since the Second World War has displaced millions, leaving Ukrainian cities, towns, and villages. Ukraine has joined the chorus of anger from Western nations by calling Russia's holding the UN Security Council presidency for April a symbolic blow. The Russia-Ukraine war that started on February 24 has taken numerous lives, and the war continues to escalate between the two nations even now. The biggest land conflict in Europe since the Second World War has displaced millions, leaving Ukrainian cities, towns, and villages. Ukraine has joined the chorus of anger from Western nations by calling Russia's holding the UN Security Council presidency for April a symbolic blow with relations with the West at their weakest since the Cold War due to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Moscow takes over the chair of the Security Council as part of its monthly rotation among the 15 member states. Dates according to the outlet. Chief of Staff to the Ukrainian President Andriy Yermak described Russia's position as a symbolic blow. It's not just a shame, it is another symbolic blow to the rules-based system of international relations, he wrote on Twitter. Russia taking the presidency, according to Dmytro Kuleba, the foreign minister of Ukraine, is a slap in the face to the international community. I urge the current members to thwart any Russian attempts to abuse its presidency, he tweeted on Saturday, calling Russia an outlaw on the UNSC. When Moscow last presided over the council in February 2022, which was also the same month it invaded Ukraine, Kiev demanded that Russia be expelled from the body as per the outlet. It is to be noted that Russia will be in charge of setting the agenda, but will have little impact on decisions. According to Russia, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov will preside over UN Security Council discussion on effective multilateralism this month. Mr. Lavrov will moderate a discussion on the Middle East on April 25, according to Maria Zakharova, a spokesperson for the Russian Foreign Ministry. The Kremlin also declared that it intended to exercise all its rights in that capacity. The United States also criticized Russia for being a permanent member of the Security Council and its participation. There is no way to prevent Russia from taking the position, the White House urged, adding that it should conduct itself professionally, according to White House spokeswoman Karine Jean-Pierre. A country that flagrantly violates the UN Charter and invades its neighbor has no place on the UN Security Council. President Vladimir Putin conceded Wednesday that sanctions imposed on Russia for its intervention in Ukraine could bring about negative consequences for the country. After insisting Moscow was adapting to the penalties, the sanctions imposed against the Russian economy in the medium term could really have a negative impact, Vladimir Putin said in a televised meeting with the government. Western capitals have imposed unprecedented sanctions on Moscow after President Putin launched his operation in Ukraine over a year ago. President Putin has repeatedly said that Russia is weathering the barrage of economic sanctions, which in particular targeted its oil and gas exports. The Russian leader said Wednesday that unemployment in the country remains at an all-time low, while inflation is expected to drop below 4% by the end of March after soaring in spring last year. He added, however, that the return to a growth trajectory should not make us feel relaxed. We need to support and strengthen the positive trends in our economy, increase its efficiency, ensure technological personnel and financial sovereignty, he said. President Putin called on the government to act quickly and without unnecessary bureaucracy and delays. Russia has suffered a lot in the ongoing military offensive against Ukraine. When Moscow sent its military to Ukraine in February last year, many experts predicted Ukraine will suffer a lot, but Ukraine held its ground against the militarily stronger neighbor and even killed many of its soldiers as tables turned. Experts started forecasting about Russia and, more importantly, its president, Vladimir Putin's fate. Now, a former Russian diplomat has told Newsweek that if Mr. Putin is unable to win the war on his preferred terms, he may eventually be forced to step down if Russia loses the war. Mr. Putin cannot give his country anything in exchange, said Mr. Bodrov, adding that there will be disappointment and disagreement. They might think they don't need Putin anymore. I think that once they say farewell to the delusions and find themselves in a new reality where Putin cannot deliver anything, only fear and some kind of threat of repression against his own people, that will change the situation, Mr. Bondarev told Newsweek. The fighting is currently centered around Bakhmut as Moscow intensifies a winter campaign to capture the small eastern city. Bakhmut has become the main focus of Russia's assault, with months of bloody infantry battles inflicting heavy losses on both sides. Russian forces, led by the Wagner private army, have captured the city's east, but so far failed to encircle it.